what that tells me and what that tells you, and it's just plain common sense, you need help paying for college. And that help is called financial aid, and that's what we're going to talk about. If you can't write the check, the school isn't going to say, well, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, you know, you're a nice person, so, you know, we're not going to charge you. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. You're not going to go to college for free. Very few people in the world go to college for free. Okay? So, what we're going to talk about, how to get financial aid. Here is the formula right here. How they determine if you are eligible for financial aid. It's called the needs analysis formula. All right? And what they do is, you see, there's three components of it. The cost of attendance, the COA, that's the cost of the school. They subtract from that what's called your EFC, or your expected estimated family's contribution. I'm going to define all these, so bear with me. And if there is a difference, there is a need, your financial need. Your need is simply how much financial aid you are eligible for. Simple as that. It's a simple arithmetic formula. Okay, simple subtraction. Let's take an example. Your total college costs come to $20,000. Your EFC comes out to 8. That means you are eligible, 20 minus 8, you are eligible, you have a financial need of $12,000. Okay? Everybody understands that, I assume. All right? Now, let's define some of these terms. Your cost of attendance, total college costs. When I mention some of the costs, people are always going to say, well, I read in this, you know, this big book that I saw out in the library or Barnes & Noble that, you know, Rutgers is only $19,000 or $20,000, and it's not that much money. Well, the cost of attendance is a financial aid term, and it includes any dime, any penny you spend attending college. So it's not just tuition and fees and books and supplies, room and board, of course, personal expenses, transportation. Some schools, believe it or not, will require you to buy their own health insurance, whether or not your son or daughter is included on your policy. Now, there is an opportunity for you to opt out if you catch the small print. Now, I always say, you know, aren't they milking you for enough, $50,000, $60,000? You know, shouldn't it be the other way? You should have to opt in instead of check a box to opt out. Isn't that kind of, you know, I don't know, underhanded? Yeah, I just don't like when you have to opt out. You should have to, okay, I want the health insurance, instead of saying, all right, they're gonna charge you unless you opt out. I have a problem with that, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so the cost of attendance is your total college cost. If you pay tolls commuting to college, that's included. Okay, if you live off campus, that's included. All right. So any dime you spend if going to college, now if you go to school in Florida, they determine your transportation, not you. So they may say, well, you take a bus, and you say, well, I fly. And you say, well, that's the way we calculate it. But, you know, that's, you know, little minutia. Okay? All right, your EFC. Your EFC, your expected family contribution, is basically defined as a measure of your family's ability to pay for college. All right? It is composed of a huge formula. If you look it up, it's about 4 pages divided in half. So it's about 8 columns. All right? And it's comprised a lot of different minor parts, but the 4 major parts of the EFC formula, all right? Parents' income, parents' assets, students' income, students' assets. Those are the 4 major components of the EFC. All right, now there's a lot of different variables and weights that go into it. All right, now what you're going to do is you're going to fill out a lot of forms, and you're going to send them in through the various channels, call them what you will, and the school, the government, the state government is going to tell you what you can afford to cop for college. All right, you don't tell the school what you can afford. They don't care that you have excessive credit card debt, your mortgage is this amount. They don't care. All right? They must all go to the same train because they use the same term. That's discretionary. Right? So that's what they... have you heard that? Well, you know, people they've told me this. Like I said, these are things that they've told my clients, so I don't make this stuff up. This is just from experience. Sir? You together? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so your EFC is basically, think of it as your college liability, what you are going to have to pay for college. All right, They don't care that New Jersey has the highest property taxes in the country. They don't care about that, all right? It's basically based on those four components. And let's, be realistic. $100,000 salary or income in northern New Jersey, while you're not poor, okay? You're not, living, the high life. All right? $100,000 in Mississippi. I don't want to insult anybody from Mississippi, or Arkansas. Don't want to insult the Clintons, God forbid. You're the king and queen of Arkansas and Mississippi. All right, so it's a national formula. All right, it's going to be your EFC is the minimum amount that you are going to pay for college. Very rarely, like I said before, are you going to have to pay zero for college, unless your son or daughter is 7 foot tall, can shoot 3-pointers, can throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, can run a 4.2 40, and tackle like the Dickens, or have perfect grades and boards. You're going to have to pay something for college. All right, what we're talking about here tonight is reducing that amount, getting that down to a minimum. And knowing the variables and the weights on those variables in the EFC formula, you can reduce your EFC. Reducing your EFC maximizes your rate. Remember that formula. Let's take an example of student assets. We began talking about how dreadful student assets are for financial aid. Money in the student's name will kill your chances of getting financial aid. Okay? Let's say you have $10,000. You go to your local Smith Barney guy, and he says, all right, $10,000 you want to save for college? Has anybody gone to a financial planner, CPA, somebody, and said, I have some money, I want to, what should I do with it for college? Has that recently? What did he say to you?
529 plan.
529 plan. Is that what he said to you?
That wasn't recent, so...
Okay. Okay. That's the new buzzword. The new buzz is 529 plans. Well, and I think 529 plans as a pure college savings vehicle are fantastic. It's a very gray area as far as financial aid. I'm not going to get into it tonight because if I want to get you out of here before, midnight, I have to talk fast. I'm only kidding. You'll be out of here way before midnight, by the way. All right. So that $10,000, and you go to your Smith Barney guys. He says, all right, invest it in a 529 plan. All right, and let's, so we avoid any misunderstanding. We'll say let's. He says, invest it in a uniform gift to minors account because it's taxed at the child's rate, which totally out the window nowadays. Okay, so that $10,000 is now in the student's name. The EFC formula assesses that or counts it against you anywhere from 20 to 35%. So now your EFC, without parents' income, parents' assets, is already at $3,500. Okay, you're already behind the 8 ball at $3,500. So you got a little smart, you did a little research, you looked it up on the internet, say, hey, student assets are bad. Okay, it's not the best way, but it's a better way. I'll just put it in my name, my mom's name, dad's name, and we'll just mark it, it's the college account. Okay, mark it in our head, it's the college account. CD, whatever you want to do. All right? A parent's assets are assessed at 5.6%. So that's $560 versus $3,500. Okay, you saved yourself about $3,000. $2,940 if you want to be exact. Okay? Just by being a little smart. Reducing your EFC maximizes your eligibility. Remember this formula. 20 minus 8 equals 12. Suppose the 8 went to 5. You got smart, you got the money out of the student's name. Now that your EFC went from 8 to 5. Your need or your eligibility for financial aid has now went from 12 to 15. All right, it's very simplistic. I know this example, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detailed one a little bit later. But you get the idea. There are things that you can do. All right, you're not just stuck where you are. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Don't let the pundits or anybody else tell you, oh, there's nothing you can do. You're not going to get it. Like I said, I've been doing this long enough, and I've heard a lot. I have a lot of sayings. One of my favorite sayings is, I've seen more money lost in financial aid because of misinformation than anything else. Your neighbors, your friends, your work associates, they all want to tell you what to do. And they say, well, you know, I've applied for financial aid, I didn't get anything. Oh, you know, how much money do they make? Do they know how much money you make? Don't even bother applying for it. You know, there's so much misinformation out there, you know, that while they all mean well, they're not experts in it. They're not experts in it. Like I said, I've done this long enough to know these examples, and what I'm talking about is based on experience. It's not based on theory. All right? It's based on what I've seen happen. All right, now, your EFC. Your EFC, there are a few different formulas that will determine your EFC. All right, let's go with the worst first. Some schools, they may say to you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we are a private institution. We can do what we want with our own money. And because you live in Sussex County, New Jersey, we're going to count, you know, the parent assets as student assets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay? That's, you know, looking at the glass half empty. I'm a glass half full type of guy. So they can say to you, well, Mr. and Mrs. Jones from Sussex County, New Jersey, we really want your son and daughter to go to our school, so we're going to, you know, not count this, or we're going to count it this way, and do things this way. We're going to give you this amount of money. All right? Financial aid directors, financial aid officers have what's called professional judgment. All right? They can basically do what they want. All right? So instead of looking at it half empty, look at it half full. All right? That's one way they can do it, and I learned that the hard way too. An associate of mine, he wasn't a client or anything, but he knew what I did, and he had a son going to University of Pennsylvania. Good school, right? Ivy League school. Let's call $20,000 in the student's name. You know, I told him, well, you know, it's going to count against you. He said, well, I'll spend it the first year, and then afterwards, I'll have no money in the student's name, right? You would think that's the right way, right? University of Pennsylvania, no, no, no. What they did is they prorated it. Even though we spent it all the first year, after they said, no, after the first year you're going to have 15. After the second year you're going to have 10. After the third year you're going to have 5. Is it fair? No. We could do what we want with our... They're not the only school to say that. You know, there's a couple of others that have said that to my clients as well. 99% of the schools are going to either use the federal or the institutional formula. The way they determine what formula they use is the money they give out. If they give out federal money, they have to use the federal formula. So every school in the country gives out federal financial aid. So to give out that specific money, they use the federal formula. If they give out their own money, they can use any way they want, but generally they will use either the federal or more commonly now, they will use what's called the institutional formula. All right? The difference in the calculation. There's a lot of minor differences, but the major difference in the calculation of the formulas, the federal formula will not, I will repeat that, the federal formula will not count your primary residence. You can own a $10 million home with no debt on it, they don't ask about it. How many of you heard, oh, yeah, I heard I own my own house, so I'm never going to get